Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are listening and you are watching Church Without Walls in the studio of the New Orleans Talk Network. We come your way every Monday morning, 11 to 12 Central Standard Time. We come to knock down every wall that may stand in your way. Remember, you are the church. We thank you for watching. We thank you for listening to Church Without Walls every Monday morning. We are delighted that you invite us into your home. And we always try to, not try so much, but we are here to knock down every wall. Dr. William and myself, we may not have the answer, but I guarantee you, whatever you ask us, that what we don't know today, we'll know it at next week's show. So we invite you to share with us today. And as always, every other month, our great sheriff, the Honorable, and the great sheriff of Jefferson Parish, Mr. Joseph Lopinto, is in the studio with us. But before we start the show, this past week and the week before, we are in New Orleans and this country have lost some of the greatest people that God let come on this earth. Miss Chase passing. Dr. John's funeral, I think, was Saturday. And also yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, Saturday, another great musician and a great songwriter, whatever you want to call him, Dave Mathalman. He passed away. So God called him home, and I can imagine Dr. William and Sheriff in heaven, boy, they're going to have some hellfire musicians up there, boy.
Music and food, they're going to have a good week.
Oh, yeah, they got the food, the chef that made it up there, and also the musicians. So, on behalf of Church Without Walls, we are so happy to have known those great people. We a couple of them I got to meet personally. I'm happy, and share for my date. One of my first dates, a young lady I was crazy about, I was able to take her to Duke and Chase on a prom night, and that was very special to me as a young kid, 17 years old, to go sit down at a nice restaurant. And I'm happy that I got to meet her personally. And also, many know that Fat Domino, some of the greatest songs that he sung and made. Mr. Mathalman wrote those songs. And so, on behalf of Church Without Walls, all the family, not only in the music industry, but all families, the Jones family, many families lost their loved one, the Lee family over in Kenner, my good friend, B. Dory lost her first cousin, and we love all of y'all, and we thank God for you, and we just want to know that we have y'all family in prayer, and we love you, and we share your loss and your grief with you. But we're going to get into the show. Our sheriff, as I say, he always come give us an update. And sheriff, they got so much going on. I don't know where we could begin at.
It's been a crazy week for us.
It's been a crazy week and a crazy month. And I would say, sheriff, that when people find out that you're going to be on the show, they ask me many, many questions. And I said, I can't answer Chef all those questions. But I guess, Chef, that we can start off by talking about the young man over in Kenner who seemed to be, I don't know from the news report that he be somewhat mentally disturbed. And he was a great young man coming up. I seen Coach J.T. Curtis spoke on it, have many other people. And sometimes people's minds snap. So could you give us an update of that case? Because some people want to know, is he in jail or what the
No, he's absolutely in jail. He's charged from Jefferson Parish two counts of first-degree murder, one count of second-degree murder, and then he also has some additional attempted murders from Jefferson Parish and Kenner, and then New Orleans has their open investigations. From the understanding, yeah, he grew up as a kid, played football, but his mental decline has been happening over the last year or so. He's been committed twice over the last year. I have not seen his medical records as of yet. We have to subpoena those. But it's from what I'm getting from our reports, his mental decline was going forward, but nothing from the standpoint that, look, we have a lot of people in this area that have mental illness, not unlike any other place in the country, but very few of them absolutely manifest themselves in the homicidal tendencies. In this case, it happened. He was riding around randomly shooting people and involved with instances, sometimes unluckily, actually killing people, other times luckily missing them, but was obviously going out over that at least 2-week period, shooting randomly at people, killing 3 that we know of in Jefferson Parish, and more presumably 1 more in Orleans, and that's what we've been able to track down. Thankfully, our detectives were able to get on this very quickly from the first incident here in Jefferson Parish, solve it very quickly within 16 hours, have a person in custody, which makes a big difference, and obviously that we hopefully averted a lot more tragedy for other victims.
Sheriff, in Shrewsbury, they had a killer. Now I haven't heard anything else on it. From my understanding, you can correct me if I'm not being accurate what I'm saying. From what I seen on the news, that they had 3 young men was standing outside and 2 individuals came up and started shooting. What's going on with that case?
That's the information that we have right now. We have 1 that was fatally wounded, 2 that was shot. Generally speaking, we do not release the names of people that are just victims of crime. I think this one has been well publicized because one of the victims' non-fatal injury was a Grambling football player. So we are investigating that. We do have several leads in that case, but we have not made an arrest as of yet. Let's face it, we are trying to build as much information as possible against suspects that possibly involved with that. From what I understand, according to the manager at the gym, they really didn't have any big problems at the Lemon Gym that night. They had probably about 25, 30 people there for the basketball game. The gym closed at 9 o'clock. Everybody left. Few people were just hanging around, but not many. Most of the people had left. And gentleman came up with a gun, firing at all 3, striking all 3, one of them being fatally. We ask anybody that has any information on that particular crime if they can contact our Detective Bureau at 364-5300 or 3 in Crime Stoppers at 822-1111. Your tip may be able to give us some information that we can corroborate with some of the information that we already have and be able to solve this case.
Right. According to one, I think it was WBUE, I think, could have been them. They had interviewed the victim's grandfather. He said that the young kid just went to shoot some basketball, and they was actually outside waiting on a ride to come get them.
And that could have been accurate. I'm not 100% sure of that, but most of the people had already left after the gym had closed, and this happened shortly thereafterwards.
Right. And Shab, I want to say that to our listening audience, to the one that may be viewing, it's real dangerous to be hanging around when an event is over with. Let me tell you the reason why. I was a victim one time. I was kind of talking to this young lady, and she seemed to be, listen to my conversation. I thought I was, making headway with her. And the dance was over with, and she continued to talk to me, and I said, come on, let's go somewhere else, everybody leaving. And she kept on talking, and so I said, everybody gone, let's leave here, we in no man land. And before, I said, well, you can follow me. Before I get in my car, Jim pulled up with a gun. and he said, both of y'all give me everything y'all have. And as we was taking off, I had a ring and a watch on, and he said, drop everything, big man. But my money was in my back pocket. He never just said go in your back pocket, so I gave him everything on the ground. But Sheriff, before this incident was over with, they had a car parked across the street. I know I seen some lights on. But the young lady had set me up to be, for me to be robbed. But somebody, other young man, beat the two across the street to the draw. And I said to people all the time when I get an opportunity, something that you experience is good to share with people. It's not good to hang around. And I tell women all the time, when you go to an event, if you by yourself, you can't get close to the area where it's at, it's the best to ride the block, either park up, but don't park down the street and walk back to the event, because they got young men watching for these things now. And I know many times now when they have funerals, I don't know if that happened. I know in New Orleans a couple of times. In the higher grade, people go to funerals, they park, and when they come out of the funeral, people done broke in their car. And do that happen in Jefferson Parish?
No, I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. The reality, we are exhibiting some of the lowest crime stats we've ever seen in Jefferson Parish, which is good. But, we also know about more crime that ever exists. So, I mean, let's face it. We have people that go to a funeral every day. There's funeral homes all around the city that they go to and their car is not broken into. Do we have an incident that occurs that somebody's car probably got broken into at a funeral? Absolutely. But because we have the ability to share and know about it, now we believe that that's the new MO, which is not really the case. I mean, there are isolated incidences that occur, but that doesn't mean every funeral you go to, your car is going to get broken in. That doesn't mean because you stand in the parking lot, you should be getting shot or getting robbed. Right. That's not something that's normal, but when you look at the trends, from the robberies that take place, obviously you want to be in a safe place. You want to be in a place that has more people, because generally speaking, someone's not going to rob you when there's a ton of people around.
Okay. Now, an incident happened yesterday on Butler Drive. Could you give us a...
It actually happened on Glendella. It happened on Glendella itself. You had a young teenager which was shot in the shoulder, along with her 2-month-old child, who was injured just by flying debris. Was not shot, but was injured by flying debris. But we do have a person in custody from that incident as of last night. In fact, some of it was videotaped. We had a lot of cooperation from the witnesses itself. Okay. So the person is in custody, I believe, along with his mother, that's in custody also for an accessory with it. It seemed to be stemming from a family dispute between the two parties, so they knew each other, and it ended up firing one shot, which struck her in the shoulder, non-life-threatening injuries. But again, the person is in custody for it.
Okay. So. Chef, also you could, I got a few questions I need to ask you that people had asked me to ask you, but before we get into that, anything in Jefferson Parish that we need to be updated on, that your department is doing?
Well, we've always doing something. I mean, a day doesn't end. I mean, we're in the summer program right now, so we have a full complement of young Marines going through our Young Marine program, probably about 75 new recruits going through that program. We have our band camp going on with our Band of Excellence. We've been involved with a ton of community picnics over the last few weeks. What we're actually doing, as I spoke about earlier, is dealing with crime stats. We understand that the perception is crime is out of control. So what we've done for every civic association, we've started pulling the stats for the last 20 years of what stats were 20 years ago, every single year going forward. So some years they've raised, most years they've lowered. We're showing in Terrytown from 20 years ago, our crime rate is 57% lower than it was 20 years ago. Extremely significant changes in crime. And that's all from a good thing. I mean, I think our community support has been better than ever. The cooperation that we get on the street, I mean, we've actually had an uptick in murders this year. but we've also had a bunch of multiple murders. We had, the triple from the other day. We had a quadruple. But even those instances that have occurred, out of the 21 murders or so that we've had, all but 3 are unsolved right now, and that's including the one from last week. So high solve rate, but that's also because of the cooperation we're receiving from the community that have given the information that we need. So with us having that high solve rate, we stop the retaliation murders from happening. And that's what we're trying to do. We don't want the community to go out there and retaliate on behalf of their loved ones. We want them to have faith in us, to be able to come to us and let the system work itself out. And because we've been so successful, the community has continued to do that.
Okay, that sounds real great. And Sheriff, when the community involved, that's almost like another deputy that working with you, when people know that the community no longer going to accept the crime in the community. I know it make a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. Let's face it, we show up after the fact. 90% of the call, we're there after the fact. Our deputies are out there, and they're going to be there very quickly. But we get a call because crime occurred, and we're showing up to try to put the pieces together.
Right.
If we don't have the support from the community that gives us the information that I saw this vehicle fleeing, I saw this person fleeing, this was what's going on, we don't necessarily solve those crimes. So without having the community, they are the puzzle piece. We just put the puzzle together.
Okay, Sheriff, we have, let me see, John here. Let me see, John here last thing, can we? Mr. Hill, we see you coming over to Brown, waiting on completion. Dr. Wade, you can sit on your side.
No. Yeah. Good people to volunteer to work with the police. What?
We have a call and a listening, and he questioned
It depends. When you say volunteer with the police. So we have a bunch of people that volunteer with the police. Our chaplains, we have 72 chaplains that volunteer, go through our training program in order to volunteer with the police, that actually come out and ride with us, show up on calls, pray with victims' families, pray with the police officers that are out there handling it. We have over 200 or close to 200 reserve deputies that actually go through in a full academy. They go through our academy, they're post-certified, but they are completely volunteer. They volunteer and actually come out and help us not only patrol the streets, but handle the special events that we need to do. We have volunteers that help us in our Young Marines program. We pay a lot of our staff. So the answer is yes, we have a bunch of volunteers that help us work. It really just kind of depends on the position itself. Let's face it, police work is not always the safest profession by all means. So we put people in and allow ride-alongs, but to put people in a dangerous situation on an everyday basis, I can't put just a normal volunteer in that position. I have to do at least some type of training.
Well, Sheriff, like I said, I guess for us to be clear, I'm assuming Mr. Hill asking, can someone volunteer to work with the police department? He's saying once a week, so I don't know what Mr. Hill mean if someone from his community, I know Mr. Hill I happen to know him, he lives in Barclay State, and he's a great fine man. And I'm assuming, I don't know if he want to be a volunteer police department, but if he did want to volunteer and be a part of your police department, do they have a qualification? Could he contact anyone?
Yeah, our human resources officially, will maintain that and try to figure out where people best fit. So the answer is yes, he can contact human resources and see where he fits into the place, right? That's where it always comes down to. I can't necessarily say, I can take everybody for once a week. Depending on where you're looking to do. In order to go through an academy, you need to be able to pass an academy. Okay. So just because someone's 90 years old and wants to, wants to be a reserve policeman doesn't mean they're going to pass the academy from that standpoint. So it really depends on the type of position and what type of volunteering is looking at to make happen.
But if he wanted about someone to come in his community as a volunteer, do he have a number that he can call? How could they request that if they will?
So jpso.com has a direct link to our human resources, our
Okay.
personnel division. And our
Okay.
personnel division is the correct people to ask that question for. You know, we also need to do, I got a birthday party I got to go to later today for Miss O'Dowd, Washington. She's at one of the Gretna senior homes. I went to a birthday party last year, but she is 110 years old today.
I remember seeing
yeah, she
that
was
on
109
television.
last year, and she, I told her I'd be back for her next birthday. She remembered that I said that, and I'll get to go over there later this afternoon. But Miss Washington, if somebody happens to be watching or you happen to be watching us today, happy birthday, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, but hopefully, Mr. Hill, that your question was answered. If not, call back or just leave information with the program director. And I know you have a lot of interest in your community, and Sheriff, he felt that I think it was last year, he told me he thought that the sheriff department did a great job in his community, but he had concern about other cops that had bad habits that he was surprised of.
Yeah.
And I told him that if he brought that to your attention, I know you would do something about it. So, again, Mr. Hill, thank for that comment and your question. And hopefully, and I tell anybody, if we doesn't answer your question, get back with us, Dr. William and ourselves. We would answer your question at a later date. But on that thought, Dr. William, you're sitting there mighty quiet there.
Just listening. I'm listening today.
Yeah.
You some things are challenging. Well, my family is going through some problems right now with one of my cousins was in an accident.
You speak a little louder.
Was in an accident and 3 people were killed. So that's kind of on my mind. I wasn't going to come in this morning, but I know that I have to be here. So I've got a lot of stuff on my mind. So as I sit, I'm not saying too much. I ask the viewers to be patient, and questions will come up because I'm listening to what's saying. I'm not uninvolved. I am involved. I'm listening. And I think the sheriff has been explaining himself very well as far as the, when you talk about volunteers, you can't just put somebody out there to volunteer without giving them some type of training and making sure that they're qualified to do what they're trying to do out there. You've got to go through some kind of classes to make sure that you're there. Some of the crime stat that in Louisiana right now and in Jefferson Parish, we do know that the crime stat is much lower than it was. So the sheriff is to be commended on doing an excellent job in the parish by solving many of the crimes that have been unsolved. So you're to be commended for that.
But look, it's not me.
Or your staff. You and your staff.
Right, but the best part is things that have happened. We had a big lock your door campaign. Our burglaries were continuing, not to rise, they were still going down, but the types of burglaries were changing from a lot of unlocked vehicles. Last month, from last year's stats, which is some of the lowest in Jefferson Parish history, we were down 20% in burglaries. Last month, we were down 11% in burglaries. Number continues to go down, but that's because people are locking their doors. So instead of us getting 6 and 7 different burglaries a night, we're getting 3 and 4. Cuts the stats down, tremendously because they're having to pull on a lot more doors to get a lot fewer victims. That's because the community's taking heed, taking warning, and actually locking their doors and helping us out. And that's what we ask for. I mean, look, we hope our crime rate is 0 every year. I hope I have to put 0 people in jail. I don't get paid by the person by any means. The least amount, the better it is for us. We have a job to do to go out there, but that changes. I mean, obviously, you're talking about your family with the accident. Those things are part of our job, and of course, they don't count in crime stats. But they're still part of the sheriff's office job. In that particular case, it was state police that does the investigation. But obviously, completely tragic for the families that are involved in it. And that's about keeping drunk drivers off the road. Keeping people off the road that shouldn't be off the road to try to prevent the risks that we have on an everyday basis.
Well, we don't have an eraser where we can erase crime out, because crime is going to always be here. It's going to always be existing. But we do our best to try and work with it. In New Orleans, we had some situations where some of the juveniles were just going out and breaking glasses and stuff. Does that situation exist here in Jefferson Parish?
Well, I mean, so right after school, there's normally an influx of what I call juvenile type crime. So first week after school, we had a bunch of vehicles on one night that got shot up by a BB gun. I mean, that's a juvenile type crime, right? But it happened one night. I mean, it wasn't something that happened over a week-long period. And one night, we had 10 or 15 vehicles that were shot with BB guns that obviously we've got to go out there and try to deal with. So you have that uptick. Not necessarily a complete uptick, but there will be more things that occur later after dark. Let's face it, the juveniles are normally in bed at an early hour when they have school the next day. When they don't, they have the ability to stay up a little later, stay out, and you're going to have more people on the street, and normally a little bit more crime exists. But not from a standpoint where it is out of control. I wouldn't say that's the case.
Do you have curfew for juveniles?
We do. We've always had a curfew in place. So now it's going to be the same as it is in New Orleans. It is here, right? We don't ever have enough jail space to go arrest everybody for a curfew violation. If you're standing in front of your house playing basketball, we're probably not going to do anything. We're probably going to shoot hoops with you before we actually take you in for a curfew violation. But if you're in a location where you shouldn't be, and your parents don't know you're there and the rest of it, well, then you've got a lot more likelihood of being arrested for a curfew violation, because we're trying to make sure that people are staying out of trouble. So it kind of depends on the situation of where the person is, and that's why our officers have discretion to take a look at that and determine what they should do in those situations.
In some of our communities, sometimes some of the officers are, I don't want to use the word hostile, but they handle people a little bit rough. How do you work with that?
Well, that's being look, every day that goes by, our use of force complaints are dramatically down. We've changed the way that we've policed over the years. We informed what we call our SET team, our strategic engagement team. So we're actually going after individual people that we already know that are wanted on crimes, that are really committing the crimes that are out there. So you don't see as many stops on the street of random people anymore. That was a way that you policed, especially back in the 80s and 90s, because that's where the drug trade was. The drug trade was on the street corners of Jefferson Parish and any place else around this country. Because of the inventions of cell phones, it's really changed the way that we police. So drugs are still out of control, but they're not necessarily on the street corner. So you see a lot less random stops by police where we're actually stopping someone on a street corner because we suspect them of drug dealing and end up stopping a person that has nothing to do with drug dealing, right? We are strategically engaged with people that we know are suspects, that we know that are dealing in drugs. So we normally can take a lot better approach to prevent the situation from ever getting into violence. We make over 20,000 arrests, almost 25,000 arrests a year in Jefferson Parish. And the last time I looked at it, back in I think the 17 numbers, out of those 25,000 arrests, only 400 of them were actually even charged with resisting arrest where there would have been some type of altercation. Doesn't mean that we use force on our side. It just means they were charged with resisting arrest. So the number is still extremely small when you look at the amount of people that are getting arrested. Again, we are so much more aware of that now. And so it is a situation where our officers, they know that they're always being videotaped by somebody that's got a cell phone, somebody's doing something from that stuff. So that's why our use of force claims have really gone down dramatically. Do you still have it? Of course. I mean, there's times that we have to use force. Let's face it, people don't always just give up. Most of the time they do. But that's not always the case. They don't always just give up, and we still have a job to do to make sure we protecting the public from that individual for whatever crime they committed earlier.
What about individuals? Say a police officer stop, say a young person driving a BMW or a young person driving
Mercedes.
Just stop them and pull them over, and when they pull you over, basic statement is going to be that we have suspicion, or your suspicion. So how do you apply suspicion to just a young individual driving a BMW?
Well, it always depends on the circumstances itself, right? You have two different laws that we go by: reasonable suspicion to make a stop, and improbable cause to make an arrest. I'll give you an example. We have a vehicle that matches the description for a crime that occurred, in Jefferson Parish that we've been putting out a bolo, be on the lookout for, right? Pretty unique vehicle that exists, but I happen to be driving on the interstate in New Orleans, coming into Jefferson Parish, and happen to see a vehicle that matches that description, pretty close to a T. But we don't have a license plate on the vehicle. We just have a vehicle description. I have no clue if the people that are in that vehicle committed the crime or didn't commit the crime. I get on my radio in order to get additional units with me, make the stop, to identify the people that are in the car to see if they happen to be involved with the case that we're working. They weren't. They had nothing to do with it. But I made that stop on them, and I communicated it to them. Look, this is the reason I stopped you. This is the reason that that I'm asking you who you are right now. Doesn't appear that you're involved, but we get their information. We get what we need just in case we have to do any follow-up, because maybe it is the right vehicle, but just somebody else is driving the vehicle at that point in time. So we can do our investigation at a later date, and we release them. So, we are not going to necessarily tell, just like I haven't told the viewers right now, the people that we're stopping and why we're stopping you necessarily, because we don't want that to get out there. Because the problem is we're trying to find the people before they have the opportunity to go throw a gun away, destroy evidence, do whatever the case may be. We want them to believe that they got away with that crime.
Sheriff, we got to take a break here. We're going to take a quick break. You are listening to Church Without Walls, Dr. William and Charles Stewart, and our great sheriff, Mr. Lopinto. We'll be right back.
Yo, Mob, kick it for me one time.
Here at Jones Insurance, your full-service agency, let us take care of all your insurance needs. We provide homeowners insurance, flood, rental, commercial, auto, and life insurance. Don't let the unexpected tragedy destroy your family's future. Here at Jones Insurance, 7603 West Bank Expressway, Monroe, Louisiana, 772. Contact Lois at 504-348-1492.
Hi, I'm Prophetess Charlene Duforce,
And I'm Bishop Carol Duforce Sr.
and we're from Living Witnesses Ministries.
And we also have a program on the internet called Living by the Word Daily. And we're seen every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon Central Time on the New Orleans Talk Network.
And we would like to invite you to tune in with us every Wednesday morning, again, 11 to 12 noon Central Daylight Time. Please join us as we teach the Word of God. Thank you, and God bless.
God bless you.
Listen up. Your customers, our listeners, could be hearing about your business right now. Yeah, right now. Don't miss out on the opportunity to advertise with NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. Call our business department today at 504-475-4793 to hear about our great rates. NewOrleansTalkNetwork.com. We provide the people, you provide the business.
Kick it for me one time.
We are back. You are listening and watching Church Without Walls. Dr. William and Charles Stewart and our great Sheriff Lopinto. If you would like to get in to this conversation, you can call 1-563-999-1808. If you like to get in on the conversation. And as we were leaving, Dr. William had asked a question and the sheriff was answering it. And during the break, we were talking about someone had text, and they want to know that do the sheriff department have training for the officer? And I guess I'm gonna break it down. You know, the whole text, but in a nutshell, it's saying that this community leader, they getting questions from people who respect them about the officer handing up on these young men. So let's make it plain and simple. In the African American community, feel that the police is handing up on them more than they do in the white community. And that's a good question, and I think that's something, Sheriff, that we need to discuss and put that on the table today.
So we have done several different things over a few years. Let's face it, anytime somebody gets pulled over, no matter what, if you're white, African American, or indifferent, you believe you were targeted at that point. And because of our past and history of policing, African American community will figure that obviously they're being targeted. But what we have been able to do is look at how we end up policing. So a few years ago, we actually looked at all of our traffic stops and compared them from a daytime traffic stop to nighttime traffic stops. Nighttime traffic stops, most of the time when you're making that stop, you don't know who's in the vehicle. You don't know what their race is. So is our percentage of stops higher in the daytime on African Americans than they are at nighttime, and trying to make that determination? What we've been able to find is that's not the case. Now, to the individual that's pulled over at that time, they believe they're being targeted. But when we look at our traffic stops and at a particular location, that African American that's happened to get in a ticket or happened to get stopped on that particular case may not understand that there was the last three people were white that got tickets from that location. But because they're the target at that point in time, they obviously feel like that's a problem. So when we look at our overall stats on individual like tickets being written, there isn't any profiling from there. Now, when you look from a crime standpoint, 30 minutes ago, right before I got here, we had a crime that occurred here in Marrero. Ended up, I believe, some type of domestic. I never made it to the scene, but they put a description of a vehicle out heading southbound on Ames. I happen to be close to here, so I stayed at the expressway. Northbound on Ames, and I stayed at the expressway in Ames looking for the vehicle. All I have is a vehicle description. So if a vehicle description passes me that matches that, I don't know if that person is involved with the crime or not involved with the crime, but I'm going to make a traffic stop on it to see if that's the case. So we will be pulling over certain people because they're connected to a crime. 90% of the police work that is out there is reactionary. We are reacting to a crime that happens. A descriptor of who the suspect is only that, a descriptor. Let's face it, if I have a shooting, the one yesterday on Glendella, my descriptor was I had a black male that was wanted, for that suspect. I'm obviously not going to go stop a whole bunch of white males in that short period of time because that's not who I'm looking for at that point, right?
Right.
But to the opposite end, last week when I had the white male that committed 3 murders, I wasn't randomly riding around stopping a bunch of African American males trying to locate the suspect because I knew my suspect was a white male.
Right.
So it happens on both sides, and so we you know, the sensitivity portion of it. I am never going to say my officers can't be wrong. They are. I terminate people often because they do things that are not conducive to what we're trying to have on the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. But I ask people that believe they have legitimate complaints to contact our internal affairs. One, you may be able to find out information to know why we were there that we weren't able to share with you on the scene itself. Or two, it may be they may be sustained complaint, and they may end up getting suspended, terminated, you know, depending on what happens. That's what we have our internal affairs division for. And instead of the, you know, oh, this happens, give us the opportunity to look into it to see if it's real or not.
But Sheriff, I think a lot of times, in other words, just say my experience is 71. I'm 71 years old. My 71 years on this earth. I think a lot of times when police stop you, it's your attitude sometimes determine officer action. You know, 'cause I remember me and my son were riding, and my son coming across the causeway, and when we got him off the causeway, cop was sitting there waiting. He put us on the side, and my son jumped out there. He wanted to jump on the cop, you know. And I said, "Oh, son, wait a minute." And the officer said, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "Man, you got better thing to do. They got people robbing people and all that there." But his attitude was, "You shouldn't be stopping me. You got other thing to do." But he was done. "I'm scared as hell, Reverend. I'm praying to God. So God, if you let me make it on the other side of the lake of the train, I promise you, I will not ride this Negro again in the truck." He had me, I was scared to death. But he wanted to jump on the officer. I said, "Officer, hold on." I said, "My son let me out." I said, "Son, you were wrong." And the officer, he said, "Well," he said, "Mr. Stewart," he said, "if you were driving your attitude," he said, "I wouldn't even give you a ticket." I said, "Well, you need to give my son a ticket, let him know that he shouldn't be driving 100 miles across the water. Something when he had a flat tire, we were dead." But he couldn't see that, and a lot of times I think I was young men.
Right? Not half that, right?
No.
You're dead, right?
Yeah. But you know, the point that I'm making, Sheriff, is I have never got a ticket from an officer that I didn't deserve. Now I think I only got 3 tickets in my whole life. One from a state policeman, and no, 2 from 2 state policemen. I think one from a seatbelt and one in Kenner. And I got no seatbelt in Kenner. Other time, officer stopped me and I was wrong. And but when I got out of the car, the officer said, "Apologize." What it mean? I said, "For you stopping me, it had to be something that I did wrong. What did I do wrong?" And he said, "Well, Mr. Stewart," he said, "do you know what the speed limit is on the street?" I said, "Officer, you know, it's like 35. He said, "What you were doing?" I said, "About 55. He said, "Well, you honest?" He said, "Why you was speeding?" I said, "I was late for a meeting trying to get there." And he said, "Because you're honest," he said, "if you do it again, I know to get there." And that done, I ran to the back of a state policeman. And I said, "Officer, I apologize, and my mind was somewhere else." And he said, "Mr. Stewart," he said, "You're just an honest man." He said, "Go ahead on." He said, "Please don't." He said, "You haven't dented my car, you're okay." But the point that I'm making, if you have the right attitude, like if I walk up to Reverend William, and Reverend William asks, "What you want with me?" Snap with Reverend William might snap. Mm-hmm. And I think that happened to a lot of African Americans. Now, to their point, a lot of African Americans, they look at television, look at the news, so it's in their mind that when a cop stop them, they're being discriminated against.
Right. And
so they get out hostile, and what that helps them make the officer, wait a minute.
And I'll tell you,
I'm a policeman, and that's the way it gets started a lot of times.
And you got to remember, I'll be the first to say that happens anywhere around this nation. But when you compare it to the amount of calls, just in Jefferson Parish, we handle 430,000 calls for service a year. You know, so the amount of numbers are so slim. It's not like you're hearing about this every day. I mean, we could listen to a radio for an hour and you'd be amazed at the amount of calls for service our deputies are going on, and we're not receiving those complaints. So you know that's something that we always strive to work on to change that public perception by all means.
I think the main thing that we have to realize is that attitude play a very important part.
Definitely.
Because the police have a job to do. And the person that's being stopped, if you get out with an attitude, you're gonna receive an attitude. Because I remember coming from Alabama one night, and I know I was probably doing about 90 miles an hour, and I saw the light blink, car on the side of the road, and the officer came behind me, so I pulled over. And he got out of the car. He said to me, he said, boy, where you going? I said, well, I'm headed back to New Orleans. He said, boy, you know how fast you was driving? I said, no, sir. But I kept saying yes, sir, no, sir, to him, speaking in that turn. So he told me, he said, follow me down to this donut shop right over here. So I followed him. We got out there. He said, I'm having a cup of chocolate and a donut. Jelly donut. I said, sure, give the man whatever you want. So he got it, I paid for it, and he sat down there and he looked at me. He said, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. He said, I'm gonna follow you for 1 mile. If you zig or zag, I'm gonna bring your ass to jail. So, yes, sir. So after I drove close to about a mile, he put his light on and he put his hand out the window and he waved. I said, but attitude plays a big part. And you know, a lot of our people who are being arrested or being stopped,
away in jail.
You kind of put yourself in a position where you got to remember that whatever your job is, that's what your job is, and that person have to do their job, and you have to be mindful to them also.
Right.
So there's a two-way situation on how you deal with everything.
We got to end this show, Dr. William. It was just getting good, but anyway, they say all good things got to end, so this show must end. And we thank the sheriff again for always coming and give us an update. Anything want to close, Sheriff?
Can't be half dead.
Can't be half dead. I want to say this real quickly before we leave, that the women of Treasures had a great event over the weekend, and they got the women of the coalition have a great event. Also this Saturday, it's a bunch from 10 to 12, and they have the Honorable Councilwoman Cynthia Lee Shane going to be the speaker. So we invite all the women to come out and support the women of the coalition. Also the men are invited too, so they're not discriminating against men. So that's Saturday from 10 to 12. On behalf of Dr. William and our great sheriff, there's no such thing as being half dead. If you're dead, you're what? You're dead. Yes. We'll see y'all next week.